Hello, everybody, and welcome to Climate Diet. I'm Jane DeMarinis, and I'm the Executive Director of Climate Diet. And we are doing our podcast today, Climate and Cuisine. And our guest we're thrilled to have is Renee King Sonnen, who is also known as the Rowdy Girl. She has become an international animal rights activist. We want to hear more of her story. I had the opportunity to meet her at a conference of like-minded people in I'm not sure if that was October. I think it was summer. I think it might have been July
It
in
might have been.
Arizona.
It was hot.
Yeah, it was definitely hot. But I just want to give everybody a little background in case they don't know about Renee. Renee is a trailblazer with her husband. She got into this, she rescued her husband's Texas cattle herd from slaughter. And that was just the beginning of an international recognition for what she's done. So her story is, she's went from rancher to vegan, which is unusual, I think. And it's a blockbuster story. And her story actually was seen in 2016 on CBS Evening News. And that launched an international following that propelled her into the forefront of the animal rights movement. And she is certainly a leader. And she's been recognized by Veg News with a prestigious award, the Vegan Rookie of the Year in
Yeah.
2016. We know she's no longer a rookie, and she does podcasts, and people want her for news stories, documentaries, magazine interviews all over the world. And she has her own media as well. So Renee, welcome. It's great
Thank
to see you
you.
again from the last time I met you.
Thank you. And when I hear all that, I'm going, wow, man, we have it's it's been a ride. It's been a ride, Jane.
It's a wonderful story, and I admire the boldness of what you do and how compelling it is to think you and your husband went from being the ranchers to being the vegans. So could you just talk a little bit about that and how you got motivated in the day you said, this is it. We're not killing animals.
Yeah, I certainly will. My husband is a multi-generational cattle rancher, Tommy Sonnen, and we married the second time. And first time we divorced, there was about I don't know, close to 15 years between the time we remarried. And whenever we remarried, he had picked up the ranching baton of his forefathers and had bought a 96-acre ranch and was about to retire from Dow Chemical. And he was going to pick up that baton, and ranching was going to be the way for him to really have a very relaxing, retirement. He was uh, he was all into it. He was really spending tons of time and money, all his vacation into that. And I moved in over there, and we got married March 25th of 2010. And October 31st, 2014 is when I went vegan. So if you consider the time period, there's quite a few years there. And the reason for that is it was a slow process. You know, cattle ranchers don't go vegan. As a cattle rancher's wife, I didn't wake up one day and go, God, honey, I think I'm going to go vegan and screw your life up forever. And, buy your cows and make you the most embarrassed guy in Brazoria County. That's exactly what I want to do. No, that was not on my agenda. It was not in my plans. But
Well,
that is
stop and go back about the buying his cows. I forgot that aspect of it. So tell that part of it, would
Well,
you?
that's what happened. That's where I was going. It takes me a minute to get there. But because, I didn't just buy his cows one day. I mean, it took a while for me to go there. That was the final straw, if you will, was me pretty much telling my husband, you take those cows up the road one more time, I'm going to buy them all back with your credit card, and I'm going to bring them all back home from the sale barn, and you are going to be the most embarrassed man in Brazoria County. That happened. That was the last thing that happened before I made him, the most embarrassed, man in that county. Honestly, that's the way he felt anyway. But what happened is I began to have a spiritual awakening on the cattle ranch when my husband wanted me to get more involved in the cattle ranching business, and I didn't really want to. I am a music producer, I am a singer-songwriter, and during that time period, I was producing an all-women's Texas country music show. It was called Texas Women in Country Music, Renee King and the Honky Tonk Queens. And so I was all about producing music, discovering, raw talent and finding, ways to get them in the limelight and all that. That's what I was doing at that time. I didn't want to be involved in the ranch. I had no desire. They were just cows out there. I had a collection of leather boots, leather clothes. I went to chili cook-offs, barbecue cook-offs, rodeos. My students in the school opened up in the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, for big name stars like, Trisha Yearwood, Tracy Lawrence, Trisha, all those
Wow.
people back in the day.
Wow.
And so I was, very much into the world of, music and high level music. And production. And so what Tommy did is he came home one day and he told me about these babies that needed a mama. I've never been able to have babies. And so he kind of touched my nerve and said these calves needed a mama. And I was like, what's wrong? He said they need, some attention. You want to go look at them. And I was like, oh, okay. I will look at these babies. And so I went and looked at these babies up the road. One of them is the infamous Rowdy Girl today. But I bought these two calves. Bobo died very young. She had a failure to thrive disease, but Rowdy Girl became the reason I got up in the morning, the reason I ran outside before bedtime to feed her. I wasn't a vegan. I was just, loving this little baby calf. She became just like a dog or a cat to me. She came when I called her. She, was my little baby. And what happened is when I would be bottle feeding Rowdy Girl, she would be bottle feeding me, I felt like, into a world that I had never seen. I was able to take in impressions of all the other cows that I'd never seen before. She was feeding me information about who the cows were, and I was able to see them individually and name them. And this happened over a period of few months. And I would go home and I would tell my husband all about it, and he would get increasingly upset because I was naming the cows, and I was not supposed to be, doing that. And anyway, that's that's what started happening.
That is an amazing story. So how did you name Rowdy Girl? I guess was she a little cantankerous or?
Well, right when I met her, Jane, she came like bucking out of the, wherever she
Oh,
was coming from, and she was bucking. I said, "Why aren't you a little rowdy girl?" And it just stuck. And ever since then, she's, she is a rowdy girl, and I've been given and blessed with her spirit as well. Sometimes I don't know where she starts, I end, where she begins, I'm in. I don't know. I hear her all the time in my head. We have a mutual agreement, and I am very much in tune with, with animals, and going vegan made it even more so. But of course it did. But even before I went vegan, I always had a real in tune, um, personality when it came to animals, persona. But Rowdy Girl intensified all that, as the days, the weeks, the months, the years went on.
that is just such a fantastic story. And then the part where you just purchased the whole herd from your husband. I don't know if you want to give some details on that at all.
Well, yeah, what happened was, so I started falling in love with Rowdy Girl, and it took about almost 5 years for me to get to that place because I wasn't a vegan.
Okay.
I was just having, when you consider a spiritual awakening, I'm a very spiritually minded person. I'm not religious, but I am extremely spiritual. I have a deep, deep, deep spiritual um, life. It is the basis for everything I do. And so when I started having this spiritual awakening with this calf, it started really bothering me. And so I started trying to understand why we were doing what we were doing. I didn't understand why we sold calves. I went deep, deep, deep. It became a very huge special interest of mine to want to understand uh, our business. And I started landing on slaughterhouse videos. And my husband, would tell me that it was all PETA propaganda. And, I was not a vegan. I was a cattle rancher trying to understand why we raised these animals, why we sold them, what happened to them. And he said, he kept telling me, Renee, you need to stop watching that stuff. This is what we do. This is how we feed the world, and stop watching all of that. Well, I wouldn't stop. And I kept watching for years. It built up to a climax where it became intolerable for me.
Yeah.
A little bit by little bit, I kept trying to do the wrong thing the right way. And there is no right way to do the wrong thing, but I kept trying. I bought humane meat. I I bought humane milk from a dairy. I bought humane butter, humane cheese, humane, we had our own chickens. Now, obviously today I know that's all hogwash, for pardon the term, but at the time I thought I was being better, like a lot of people do. They think that there's a
Right.
humane way to kill an animal. We know that today
Right.
that there's not. But I didn't know that until I started gradually waking up. On October 31st, 2014, I had just about come to a place where I was ready to lose my mind. I was not a vegan. I wasn't going vegan that I knew of. Uh, because you don't consciously think as a cattle rancher, especially a cattle rancher's wife, you don't consciously think about being a vegan. I would every now and then run across some of these things when I was doing the research, but I just kept flipping around. I would not land there. I would not even consider it. Um, and then on October 31st, I landed on Dr. Melanie Joy. I don't know if you know her, but
I don't.
she wrote the book Where Cows Eat Pigs and Love Dogs. And she's written tons of books since. And she's the one that pretty much made carnism a word in our movement. Yeah, so she's the one. And I landed on this video where all these people were sitting around a table eating beef stew. And the lady of the house, was serving it all out. And the people there said, "Oh, I love this so much. What's the recipe?" And she says, "Well, I'm so glad you asked. You start off with a pound of very young golden retriever." This was on Halloween, 2014. I didn't know that I was going vegan that day. Nobody told me. Rowdy Girl might have, somehow subconsciously. But that was Halloween. We were getting ready to go to my mother-in-law Effie's house for a big Halloween parade that we did every year. We always went there with all the kids, and we went outside and sat on the lawn and watched the little kids and all the hot costumes go by. And so we were getting ready to do that, and Tommy was like, "Renee, get your shit together." I was like crying. I had been watching these slaughterhouse videos, and then I was just like shocked at this video where they were eating, a puppy dog, and then the lady said, "Oh, not really. I'm just kidding. It's really a cow." But the problem is, just because she said she was kidding, see, at that moment, these people eating a stew meat thought it was a dog and they couldn't eat it anymore. And this is the place where we have to reach people, is that place where they go, "Oh, I can't eat that." And that's what happened to me. Is for a moment I was there with them and I was like, "Oh my God, that's terrible." And then when she said, "Oh, just kidding, it's really a cow," nobody could continue eating. And about that time, Tommy's like, "Renee, come on, come on, come on." So I get in the truck, I go to his mother's house, and I'm just in a daze. We walk in the house, all the in laws, all the outlaws, all the cousins. I could smell food. And my mother in law, Effie, walks out with a pot of beef stew. And she goes to ladle me up a bowl, and it was like I was in the script. And I just said to her, I can't eat that. It just came right out of my mouth as if I was in that script. And she was like, and her name was Effie, so she is a genteel Southern lady, or she was. She's since passed away, rest in peace. But she was like, well, why not, Renee? I said, because it's got floating dead, hacked up animal bodies in it, and I can't eat it. And I had never said those words in a sentence like that. I'd always called it stew meat. But in that moment, I was able, and this is where we got to get, y'all. We got to get to a place where people actually see what they're eating. That it's not
Yeah.
stew meat, it's chopped up dead animals. And so I was
Yes.
there. Nobody told me to go there. It was like I saw it as clear as day. And she said, well, Renee, what did you say? And everybody in the room had stopped talking. They were looking straight at me. And I repeated myself in the dead silence. It's got floating dead, hacked up animal bodies in it, and I can't eat it. And my mother in law was like, well, Renee, you can pick it out. And I was like, no, there ain't no more picking it out. Okay, I didn't know it, but I went down the vegan rabbit hole like that. And
Yeah.
I didn't plan it. I had heard of the word vegan going through all this stuff, but I knew that that was happening to me, but I did not know how to even articulate it at that moment. So my husband looked at me in shock, and everybody else did. And, needless to say, I didn't eat the stew meat. It was a horrible rest of the day. Everybody was real tense. I mean, they looked at me like I cussed her out, you know.
Right.
And then
Right.
on the way home, my husband was so mad at me. And I told him, I said, look, you can be mad all you want to, but there ain't no more animal products gonna be coming in our house. You hear me? You bring anything in this house, I'm gonna be taking it back outside. So we got into a real big fight, and I didn't know it, but on Halloween 2014, I went vegan.
Well, congratulations. This is quite a story. So I guess I have a question of then you became vegan, and when did you start getting more of the notoriety about it? And I know
But first, I had to buy the cows.
you had to buy the cows. So that was really then the beginning of being a
So
spokesman.
what happened is first I had to go vegan. That's why I had to tell you that story, because it doesn't go from like this to that.
Right, right.
We're the first documented beef cattle ranch in the whole wide world to go vegan and transition their way of life and live to tell about it anyway. I don't know anybody else. There's no documented proof of anybody else doing this. I didn't do it to become recognized. We became recognized. And I know that it is my duty and my obligation to uphold the truth about animal agriculture and the sentience of animals, and to end the suffering. It's beholden unto me to be a spokesperson for this story. And so all I know is when that happened, when I went vegan, my husband was mad at me, and one thing started leading to the other. I got my first vegan friend. Her name is Jeannie. She lives in California near Oregon. And this was like that very night I got on social media, and I was just like, what has happened to me? I was trying to find vegans because I knew I had gone vegan. I needed a vegan friend. And so I found a vegan friend in the Global Vegan Registry, and her name was Jeannie. And she talked to me that night for hours. She let me cry. She let me just boo hoo all over her. She's since been to the sanctuary, her and her husband Mario. They'll be here in August. They've been here several times. And anyway, I didn't know it, but she was going to be the one that led me to creating a blog called Vegan Journal of a Rancher's Wife on Facebook.
Oh,
That's how I eventually raised the money to buy my husband's cows. So that's why I say this is all very nuanced. I can't just spit it out. And so, yeah, it's highly nuanced. And so she gave me the courage to start a blog on Facebook. She said, Renee, you have got to tell people this story. She said, I cannot be the only vegan in the world that knows about this. And so I was like, well, I don't know anything about doing any of that, but I'll do whatever I have to, because if I don't, my husband's going to sell the cows. And if I don't buy them from him, if I don't do something, I didn't know what would happen to me, because I had gotten sober again. I'm sober since January the 8th, 2013. I went vegan October 31st, 2014. So I had only been sober for a year and a few months. And I knew that if I did not stay true to myself, if I knew intuitively that if I would have not stayed true to my conviction, it could have easily led me to drink again. And so
Yeah.
I was very dedicated to staying true to my values that I just had. These are new values. And so I did what she said. I started the journal and I started amassing followers. And Kip Andersen, who is the producer of Cowspiracy, What the Hell, Seaspiracy, and and Christspiracy, along with Cameron Waters, he reached out to me and wanted to
Those
help.
are fantastic documentaries.
Yeah,
I've watched all of them, and
yeah.
I was already vegan, but they are fantastic documentaries.
Yeah. And so I was vegan when I watched it all too, which is crazy. Now my husband wouldn't when he watched some of them, but anyway, I watched them all. But the point of the matter is, Kip Andersen wanted to help me. He wanted to teach me how to start a fundraiser to buy the cows. And so my husband didn't know any of this. He knew nothing about it. I did all this in secret. And, because if I told him, he would freak out. And so I always say, everybody in California and all over the world knew about me going crazy on a cattle ranch before my next door neighbor, because, there's no way I'd have told them. And anyway, I launched a fundraiser with Kip's help and others. There was a guy named Robert that was real helpful. And I raised $36,000 in less than 4 months and bought his cows. Now, every step along the way, Tommy never thought I would do it. So what happened is, whenever I knew how to do the fundraiser, as soon as I knew what I was going to do, that's when I went to Tommy and I said, hey, Tommy, we were out in the pasture and he was getting ready to load all the calves up and take them to the sale barn again. I said, look, you're going to sell all the cows. In fact, he was talking about just getting out of the business completely and selling every last one of them, not just the babies. And so I was like, you wanting to sell all the cows? I said, if I could strike a deal with you, will you sell them with me? To me. Will you sell your cows to me? And he laughed out loud and he said, sell them to you. You want me to sell you my cows? And he laughed really hard. And Tommy doesn't laugh out loud. He's very flat when it comes to laughing. I mean, it has to be really funny for him to laugh. And I was like, you're laughing at me. He said, well, it's hysterical. You want to buy my cows? I said, well, what if I could? Would you let me? And he was like, okay, Renee, sure, I'll go along with this. Yeah, if you want to buy my cows, you can buy them for 30,000. I could probably get 40,000 for them if I took them to the sale barn right now. And he was just, playing along. And I said, okay, if you will let me buy your cows, can I also lease the land for $1 a year? And he said, sure, Renee, you can lease the land for $1 a year. And I said, how about 2 years? He said, yeah, Renee, sure. And he laughed out loud again. He said, you have lost your mind. I said, you're right. Absolutely. Thank God. I've lost that one. I got a new one. So I left that conversation, went to Kip, went to Robert, went to my secret diary of a cattle rancher's wife, which, is where it started all this on Facebook. It's still there. You can go back all in time. You can see it all happen, unravel. Um, anyway, and next thing you know, I'm putting it all together. I launched the fundraiser. And that's when I started raising the money. And every step along the way, Tommy became more and more convinced. He couldn't believe it. He could not believe that I was actually raising the money to buy his cows. And so I did. And Tommy started talking to other vegans. I would put the phone in his ear He watched all the documentaries. He watched Cowspiracy. He watched What the Health, which really, really, really
Yes.
helped him. And also, Forks Over Knives was the biggest one that gave my husband his why, because his father had died of a massive heart attack at the age of 62. So
Mhm.
Tommy then decided that if his, maybe there was something to this, and he would do it for his health.
That
So I
was
went, yeah, I went vegan October 31st. He went vegan May 2nd.
that was the impetus for us becoming vegan. My daughter, so I have two vegan daughters, and one of them bought us the China study, but one of us had heart issues and read the China study, and we became vegans immediately.
That's my husband's. That's
Just
what happened with my husband, the China study.
yeah, great book. And our daughters, my daughter became vegan. She was running, so she's a runner, and she was running with some friend, and he noticed that she was always congested, and he said, why are you always so congested when we run? And he asked her, do you eat meat? Do you drink dairy? And she says, well, she at the time, I think it was both. And he said, just quit the dairy. Just try it for 3 days. And they ran again. And she said it was amazing. She had the congestion was gone. She could breathe. She could run. And then I think the meat happened at the same time. But she became vegan because she saw the effects immediately from getting rid of animals out of her system.
Wow. Yeah.
But
My husband's noticed a big difference too. And he started there. But, when he met Kip Andersen came to our home, uh, shortly after I raised the money. And because I had a festival there to raise, well, actually, Kip came to my home because we needed like five or six thousand more dollars to get to the fundraiser. And so I had a festival. And so Kip came to be a speaker. And when Kip came to my home, um, Tommy wasn't vegan yet. He went vegan that day. He went vegan on May 2nd, the day of that fundraiser. It was called the Vegan Awareness Festival and Fundraiser for Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. And we had like 100 people show up. And that's when I raised the money. And Kip came, and so did Mark DeVries with Speciesism. He came. And
fantastic.
yeah, and so Kip came into my home, and I was mortified because Tommy would not take all the deer heads down, and we had a big elk on the freaking wall with big horns. Tommy was a massive hunter, and so not only a cattle rancher, but big time hunter. And so I was just mortified that Kip Andersen was going to come in my house and be surrounded by all these deadheads. And do you know, Kip walked in, he sat on my couch, and he was so loving and kind towards my husband. He was never ever judgmental. Uh, and because of that, my husband softened because he told me, Tommy had told me, if Kip can't take me for who I am, then he don't have to be here. And Kip absolutely just, I'm the one that had the problem. I wanted
Tommy, let me interrupt. Was Tommy already a vegan at that point, though?
No, he went vegan that day.
Oh, okay, okay,
He went vegan that evening.
okay.
And he didn't know he was going vegan. See, we didn't plan to go vegan. It was
Right.
an organic eruption out of a set of circumstances that happened as the result of a spiritual awakening on a cattle ranch. Telling you, that's
Tell
what
me,
happened.
give me an update on Rowdy Girl. Is she still
Yeah,
kicking?
yeah, she is. She's
Okay.
very much alive and kicking, and she's Rowdy Girl is like electricity. She she's very intuitive. She communicates to me with transmit. She transmits to me. The reason why there is a Rowdy Girl Sanctuary is because of our relationship. And like she's transmitted things to me, like when we've had big floods. We've been on the brunt of three major floods. We have been climate refugees more than once, twice, three times.
Well, I think you told me you had to leave your farm, didn't you? By
Yeah,
the way,
three.
we're in the flood today. It's pouring rain here again. It's like the
Oh,
monsoon in Washington, D.C.
wow.
Yeah, see, I don't know if you can tell how dark it is. It's a
Yeah,
storm coming in.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Anyway, let me know how to
three
tell the
times,
story.
Jane.
3 times you have were flooded your farm, and tell me how you what you did. I remember you talking about this when I met you and you were giving your talk at Salish's conference, but I know you had to move all the animals out was the huge thing, right?
Three times, not once, not twice, but thrice. Yeah, because we weren't here. We're in Welder now. But when we first started out, we were in Angleton, Texas, which is, near the coast. And so we were right, we were very near the Brazoria County River, the Brazoria River,
Okay.
the Brazos River, I mean. And and so the first time we flooded was in 2016, and it wasn't even raining. It was
Oh,
it was raining upstream, and all the flooding from up way up in Houston or whatever caused all the reservoirs and everything to flood, and all that water they had to open up all these reservoirs to keep all these communities from flooding, and so it came into the river and flooded us. So that was the first flood, and it was like, I don't know. I mean, it was horrible. It was so bad, and we had to evacuate, and I had to first of all move all the animals, and they had to go everywhere. We had to take them to the Brazoria County Fairgrounds. We had cattle ranchers around us let us borrow some of their pasture land that they didn't have. We had cowboys. Uh-oh, I lost you.
hello everybody, and welcome to part 2 of our interview with Rowdy Girl, Renee King Sonnen, and we had such an enjoyable and instructive early first part of this interview podcast with Renee. It's exciting to complete it with her. We lost power, and so that ended our first part. And my house was dark for about 8 hours,
Oh,
or maybe even 10 hours. So there was no way to complete it. So I really appreciate, Renee, that you're coming back so we can hear a little bit more of your story. And
sure.
so let me just start by again thanking you for all the work that you've done and the amazing stories that you're telling with our listeners. But I would love to start by talking about your veganism, because, of course, running a ranch and buying all the cattle is your backstory. So if we could take it from the part where you kind of declared to your husband that you were vegan and you became the vegan and had to convince him. So just take it from there,
Yeah,
Renee.
yeah. That was that day, Halloween day, when I no longer could, I no longer saw beef stew in a bowl. I saw chopped up dead animals floating around, and I said it out loud, and everybody in the family was mortified, and my husband was doubly mortified. And to call out loud, that there's floating dead, hacked up animals in a bowl, and that's why I can't eat that. Just shocked. It sent shock waves through my family, and but that's the way I saw it. And it's kind of like Wayne Dyer said, he's a self-help guru, and he's done tons of books and all, and he's passed away, but I just love his teachings. And he said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And when I stopped looking at meat like stew meat, and I saw chopped up dead animals, it changed the way I looked at animals. And so as soon as I saw what it really was, it was like the blinders were off and the race was on. And that was on Halloween, and it's appropriate that it was on Halloween day. And my husband went vegan May 2nd, 2015. So from October to May, however, my husband's life was a literal hell, because I was determined to do whatever I had to buy the cows and to create the sanctuary, which I did, and which we talked about in the first half, I hope. Um,
Yeah, we did.
yeah, and so once I went vegan, and then on May 2nd, when we had our very first vegan awareness festival and fundraiser for Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, that was the day that we raised all the rest of the money to buy the cows, and it was the day my husband went vegan. So
Awesome.
yeah, yeah. He realized he could have cheese when Follow Your Heart donated. Follow Your Heart and So Delicious donated cheese and ice cream and mayonnaise. We had mayonnaise, cheese, ice cream, all plant-based. And my husband was like, I guess I can do this. And so he did. And that was the day that my husband went from a vegetarian, he was doing vegetarian at the time, to a plant-based vegan. And it took a few years for him to completely own the ethical side of things, but he is now a bona fide ethical vegan and an animal rights activist, pretty much. So,
Oh, that's fantastic. And can you talk a bit about, so you bought all his cattle,
mhm.
or you owned them jointly and then you bought his share out, however that worked.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that? Because what happened to them? Are they became like your pets, or what, how did that work?
Yeah, I bought them. There was like 29, I believe. And I bought them, and some of them were pregnant. Some of them, they had some of them had babies, and I bought them, and they're still here unless they've some have passed away, but most of them are right here and with their babies, and they are the legacy of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. We have an entire family tree of our animals. If you go to our website, you can see the whole family of the original herd, their babies, their names, all of it. I don't think there's another sanctuary in the world that has a legacy like that, where they have an original herd they rescued with the entire legacy of who's the mama and who's the daddy and who's the sisters and all that.
Do you want to talk a bit about your belief in veganism? I understand it comes from your belief in not hurting animals, but there's a health side to it. So the ethical and moral side is important. What we feel is moral prerogative. But can you talk about the health side? Because that is a huge part. And now the climate, more and more people in my organization, it's called Climate Diet, more and more people are realizing, you know, cutting down rainforest and raising cattle is destroying the
Oh,
rainforest
oh,
in the world. And every day is a new record of heat. I just read an article in today's Washington Post. Europe is 116 degrees.
yeah.
Those are high temperatures that people are not used to. And there's just records set every day. And there are things that can do. And you and I have made these decisions um, to do something that's good for the climate and our health, and that is to not eat meat. But other people have not made that decision.
No, no, they haven't. And, the narrative around the fact that climate change is a hoax is driving those decisions for so many people. The narrative that, the carnivore diet is good for you is driving these decisions. And it's all funded by big ag. All these studies and all are skewed. They're trying to make Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods look horrible. It's all the things that they're doing. My views on this are eating a plant-based diet. It isn't just about health or compassion. It's not just about that, although, I'm an ethical vegan. That's the reason I went vegan. But also what happened is I took a radical turn when I began to realize the environmental impact and the stewardship that was my responsibility. We all own a footprint on this planet, and we should all be doing whatever we can to make food choices that lessen deforestation, that lessen the water use on our planet, that relieve the planet of species extinction, which is bizarre and outrageous. And the climate crisis is very real, just as you noted. And animal agriculture is one of the leading causes, if not the leading cause, of greenhouse gas emissions, ocean dead zones, and the entire biodiversity collapse, quite frankly. So
You are so right about it now being the leading cause, according to Gerard Bishop, a climatologist from Australia. He has done a report, and he's been a guest. We've been lucky to have him as a guest. And his data and recalculation of data that was out there, but did not include the opportunity cost and the heat that would have been absorbed by trees previously. He added that in, the opportunity cost, and he comes up with 53% of global gas emissions are from animal agriculture.
and
And
Dr.
so
Sailesh Rao has an even bigger percentage, you know.
that's right. That's right. So there's not, I don't think should be in dispute. I think it still may be, but a lot of it's just logical. If you take away the trees, which cut the temperature down by 10 degrees, according to data that I've seen, and it's even more than that, I know, by other calculations of probably how heavy the cover is from those trees, but at least 10 degrees. It's obvious the benefit to the climate.
Yes, 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 absolutely. It is one of the most egregious like curses that humanity has put on our planet. I mean, it is unbelievable that 90 billion 90 billion, is it, animals being slaughtered right now a year? uh
I think that's right. I have a chart, and too bad I don't have it next to me.
I believe it's 90 billion being slaughtered right now, and last year it was 80 billion. uh we're not gaining here. We're losing traction, not because veganism isn't in the news all the time and plant-based restaurants and everything. It's because animal ag is putting more money into creating the narratives they need to be able to kill more animals. They're stockpiling more cheese. They're stockpiling. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of cheese that is stockpiled, in our country. And it's we live in a world where 90 billion land animals are bred, confined, slaughtered every single year just to end up on somebody's plate. That's not
That's
including the trillions of fish whose deaths are so vast we don't even count them as individuals, but by weight. Um, this isn't food, it's a freaking massacre. And it's become normalized. And what we're doing to these animals, we're doing to ourselves with our health. And that's why it's so important to not only look at the ethical reason, but to also look at, the health impact of what eating animals does to you. I mean, eating animals it causes so many health problems, heart disease, arthritis, gout, diabetes. The list goes on and on for the pharmaceutical madness that has been created to combat diseases that are created by eating animals, and the pharmaceutical companies that are funded by animal ag. I mean, think about it.
Yeah, you're so right. And one thing that you didn't mention was the blocked arteries. You
And
mentioned
yeah,
heart disease. The
artists,
saturated fat is blocking the arteries. That is the key thing. And the fat from as we both know, from plants is healthy for your whole body. Um, yeah, it's a pernicious cycle. And all we can keep doing is keep keep trying to get this message out there more and more. I think we have to reach the young people, and there are more young people that are paying attention to the message. There's this survey from Rutgers University that showed 46% of people they surveyed, and I believe it wasn't just their students, but I think some of their students were certainly part of that, now say they plan to either reduce meat consumption or already are reducing their meat consumption. And then 45% said the same thing about dairy. So that's almost half of the population. And I know that's a growth number. Uh, I think they see the climate also as it's affecting them. They're inheriting this earth. So
Yes.
it's definitely
So,
getting worse.
I just want to go back to the stockpiled cheese for a minute. You know that they do.
Okay, sure.
You know that they do that. I just can't help but my brain was like just kind of I didn't I didn't elaborate on this. I talk about it in my book. But are you aware of the literal mountain of cheese that is stockpiled in our country?
I think it's USDA does this, right? It's the
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
And it
So I don't know a lot about it, but I do know it's USDA is, I think, in the lead on it.
well, people need to know that the United States right now is sitting on about 1.5 billion pounds of cheese.
Wow.
Do the math. That's the largest stockpile in recorded history. It's all tucked
Wow.
away in these cold storage facilities, mostly because we produce way more than anyone wants or needs. And so that's the reason we're killing so many animals because of all the ways that we can do to hide this so-called food. 1.5 billion pounds of cheese. Imagine the amount of animals that took.
Yeah.
Why? Because dairy is heavily, heavily subsidized. The government
Yes.
props it up by buying surplus milk and cheese to keep prices from collapsing. Otherwise, they would totally collapse. I mean, you can already see in the grocery stores, all the options you have. But the dairy, they keep being subsidized. If they weren't subsidized, there'd be no dairy farms. It's not about demand, it's about protecting a system that's freaking failing. And so, it just
And other countries, just to add on to what you're saying, other countries do not eat as much meat as the United States. We are the largest per capita meat eaters. There was an article that I just read a couple of days ago, and it was comparing Italy to the United States, and it had to do with spaghetti. And I think it was in our food section of our newspaper, but it said how much more United States Americans weigh compared to Europeans. And part of it was the amount of meat that we eat. They eat spaghetti,
Oh,
we eat a lot of spaghetti, but we eat so much more meat than is typical in European countries that is part of the equation of why we
wow.
are fatter. We are, I don't know what the amount was, a lot of it has to do with height and other things, but we are fatter overall in our country than this article related to Italians, because again, it
You
related
have
to,
a number on that, like a statistic or anything?
I can look it up and send it to you later.
Yeah, I would love to know what that is because I'll bet you it's yeah, I bet you the obesity rates are off the roof. And the United States, well, number one, the United States, has a ton of fast food restaurants. I mean, when you consider the amount of fast food restaurants that our country has, and the people that eat, triple pounders and with bacon and with cheese and French fries
Yeah,
that are got loaded with cheese. I mean,
yeah,
we have, I mean, the fast food industry, from what I remember in the United States, serves over 80 something million American adults a day.
wow,
Imagine that. And uh, I, I remember there being like over 200,000 fast food restaurants in the United States. What if we, instead of having fast food restaurants, we had, produce stands?
Well, there are, fast food restaurants now starting in the sector. And our new president, actually, a Climate Diet, is the head of Plant Burger. It only has 13 locations, but that is a step forward that they do. And seven of those locations are in the Washington, District of Columbia, Maryland, Virginia area. So we're very lucky here. And so they're a fast food place, but their food is made from plants. So it's healthy. And, I know he's spreading in the Northeast corridor. And so I hope, at some point they'll be national. But, we do have Beyond Meat and we do have Impossible. And there's other brands that have been around a long time, that Gardein and some of Morningstar, that also have plant-based burgers. Um,
Yeah.
they're not exactly new, but the ones that emulate a hamburger that you can't tell the difference, and they've done taste tests with people, and people cannot tell the difference. So they're a
Well,
good,
yeah,
healthy imitation of
they
a.
can't tell the difference, and there ought to be more. But the problem with, I mean, I remember when Jane Velez Mitchell came to Rowdy Girl for the first time back in 2017. She was just shocked at all the fast food restaurants that she passed. I mean, the most of them don't have plant-based food options.
That's right.
Some of
That's
them
right.
do, but very few. Or if they do, they have one thing.
Right.
You know, I mean, we need to see a shift where instead of seeing fast food restaurants, we see produce stands. We see, I mean, literally, I mean, let's have produce stands everywhere. Let's be teaching our community how to grow food, real food. And I mean, it's a shame that our families are relying on a Kentucky Fried Chicken, bucket, or a McDonald's Happy Meal. That's just, to me, it's just shocking, that we do that. We rely on fast food to feed our families.
But that can be changed, as Plant Burger is showing. You can have tasty plant-based food that's nourishing, very tasty, similar, to McDonald's. People like, let's face it, a lot of that food has probably too much salt and maybe too much grease. I think Plant Burger is healthier, because when I've had it, and again, we have them here in Washington, D.C., in Maryland, the food's as tasty as can be. And I think their fries are air fried, I believe. But that food is as tasty as can be. And people, once other chains would get the message, they could offer the same thing, and you can make a
Good.
profit off this healthy food.
If they would, if our world would wake up, and we would see a trend down from killing animals instead of going up.
Well, Rowdy Girl, let's make a commitment here that you and I will try to do something to change this paradigm. Maybe working with some of our partners like Salish and others to try to get this
I will
message
do
out there in a
whatever
bigger
I
way.
I will do that. That's when the book comes out. That's my whole mission for this book. Uh, I don't know if you saw it or not, but I'll just say it out loud here. Tommy and I are up for America's favorite couple right now. And if
Oh
we
my
win,
gosh,
that's
congratulations.
America's favorite couple. We're number one in our group. And imagine if a
Wow.
vegan couple wins America's favorite couple. They're going to get a story in Variety magazine. The
Wow.
Goldblum, Jeff Goldblum, who was the star in Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah, I love him.
Him and his wife are putting this on, and so
Wow.
right, everybody needs to, like, I don't know when this is going out, and you can cut this out, whatever. But I mean, I just want you to know that these are the kind of things. I didn't enter this because I want to be the couple of the year. I entered this so that veganism could get a big American boost.
That is so awesome. Well, you have the perfect opportunity to take it to a bigger platform. And that's awesome about Jeff Goldblum doing
Yeah.
this.
And his
That
wife
is,
is now responding to our comments. So now Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, our story is on their radar. That's what we need to be doing. We need to be thinking about anything we can to get out of the box, this little box that we're in.
yes,
We've got to get beyond the vegan bubble and into mainstream, or we're not going to change anything.
you're absolutely right. We've reached out to movie stars to try to get them to do more. They're not always responsive. So this is really good news about Jeff Goldblum. There are a bunch of vegan movie stars, but I don't know, you
Well,
have to go through their
they're
agents.
looking for America's favorite couple. They ain't looking for America's favorite vegan couple. They're looking for, I mean, we are up against a bunch, I mean, everybody that's not vegan. There's 20 groups. There's 74 in our group. We're number one in our group because I'm pushing it out everywhere. But imagine if a vegan couple wins America's favorite couple.
Well, we need to put that in an email out to, does Salish's group have that in awareness of this?
I haven't even told them. That's a good idea.
You got to send it to them for starters, and then we need to get it to, do you have a veg society in your area too, to get them behind it? And we
Yeah,
have one in DC, but I don't know if they would be pushing. I don't know how we can get them to push you.
the
Can
thing
you
is,
send
who
me a
they're going
little
to
note
push?
and
Who they're
we'll,
going to push? A meat eater?
no, 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 no.
You know what I
But
mean? It's like we need to support. We need to get out of our bubble. We need to get veganism out into the world. We need to make veganism like, wow, a vegan couple is America's favorite couple. Really?
if you can send me a note so that I can contact them to make sure that people vote at the right time and can access the right spot so we don't miss it, I will definitely put it through the DC Veg Society and then the
Yeah,
other groups that I work with here in
yeah.
this area.
I'll have Chelsea do that. And that's a great idea to get behind. To ask Sailesh to help. Jane
Yeah,
Velez Mitchell put me on an interview yesterday to talk about it.
awesome. Awesome.
Yep, yep, yep.
Well, this is great. So I'm wishing you the best of luck, and that would be a huge starting point. Um, I don't want you, I know you have another commitment. I don't want you to miss it. So let's just wrap this up for now. But now we have phase 3 with you, phase 3, and with more interviews to come after you become America's favorite couple,
Well,
you and your husband,
everybody's got to get out there and push it up.
right?
We'll see.
Yeah, fingers crossed, toes crossed.
Yeah.
So this has been a wonderful show again with Renee King Sonnen. Hopefully, half of America's favorite couple, and everybody listening, I hope you will vote. And we will try to put that information. We will put that information on our website, climatediet.org. And fingers crossed. Thank you
You
so
so
much,
much.
Renee, for being a part of this today.
Thank you, Jane. Big hugs. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you all for listening. This is Jane DeMarinis at Climate Diet, Climate and Cuisine, signing off.